Welcome to Furrow Field Press Box, the Mizzou Coaches Box, actually. Hopefully they don't know we're in here. 51-14 win. I'm Alex Schiffer alongside Blair Kerkhoff. Pretty non-dramatic season opener, which is usually what you want.
It is what you want. I called it no drama, a little boring, and in that it made it different than last year's season opener, which had a lot of drama, wasn't boring, and really set the tone for a terrible first half of Missouri's season. I think tonight, it's the easiest opponent that Missouri's going to play this year. It's the only FCS opponent, the easiest one that they'll play. The schedule gets gradually more difficult, but they hardly did anything wrong today. I thought that was really important.
Yeah, my big thing, as you said, last year we kind of leave the press box. They gave up 43 points to Missouri State. And we're all saying, if the defense is doing this against Missouri State, what are they going to do the next couple of weeks? They didn't, 14 points. They had one bad play, really, which is the 57-yard touchdown, and that
busted coverage.
And Barry said it was a miscommunication within the secondary, and that was that. But to me, I kind of leave more intrigued because Josh Heupel's offense was this hurry up. It was the same formation. You had two guys out wide, a guy in the slot, and then a tight end attached to some lineman, and you have Alberto Stinkhouse play coverage. They had three tight ends. They had two tight ends attached as linemen with guys on islands at the top. They had all these different formations, and the players said, well, we didn't even really show much of the playbook. We kind of kept it pretty niche just because of the caliber of opponent Tennessee Martin is. So I'm very curious about Derek Dooley now as the offensive coordinator because he had some really nice play calls today.
I thought he did too. Do you remember Missouri's first offensive play from scrimmage last season against Missouri State?
It was a touchdown.
65-yard touchdown, right? On their second possession, Missouri needed two plays to score their second touchdown. Mm-hmm. And so, 3 plays into the season for Missouri, they had 2 touchdowns and were scoring instantly, right? Mm-hmm. And you think, wow, it's a great offense. But it didn't seem sustainable to me. So what we saw tonight were touchdown drives, 66-yard touchdown drives, 62-yard touchdown drives, 7, 8, 9 play touchdown drives. Mm-hmm. I think that's significant for Missouri. Look, again, it's Tennessee Martin, it's not Georgia.
Yeah.
But the idea of getting your defense rested and the offense grinding through a drive, I think that's significant for the Tigers.
I agree, and they had series last year where even if they got a first down or two because they were going so fast, it was like a minute 30, which doesn't really wipe a lot off the clock. They also kind of used everybody. I mean, the 2 freshman wide receivers made big plays, Jalen Knox and Cam Scott with maybe the 2 toughest catches of the day.
Yeah.
Alberto had a couple of catches, but he didn't do much, and then both running backs getting involved. Emmanuel Hall looking like he'll be easily
favorite target, right?
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes.
I was really impressed with him. He set a career record, was 171 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He looked really good.
Yeah.
And I do think, kind of like Tyreek Hill is for the Chiefs. I think Emmanuel Hall is going to be for Mizzou.
Yeah, and now they have Wyoming coming here next Saturday. Wyoming was number 1 in the country in turnover margin last year. Heck of a statistic. A good matchup for Missouri's offense going into Purdue and Georgia, but Josh Allen isn't walking through the door.
Right.
It seems like they lost a lot on offense, so it's an interesting matchup because I think it's going to I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Dooley does next week with the offense and all they have. And the defense, well, they looked pretty decent. They weren't as I thought with Terry Beckner back, they would have been in the backfield a little more and then maybe getting a little more sacks. But again, I kind of feel like we're being even nitpicky with that given where we were talking about a year ago. So
you're right. I did, if you wanted to pick some nits with this, I would say you didn't see great push up front. They didn't, they did bother the quarterback on occasion, but they didn't. I don't know how many sacks they ended up with.
I think they had 2, and it was Therese Hall and Jacob Trump, so I don't even think it was a defensive line.
Okay, so but still, Tennessee Martin had 270 total yards or something like that, and the starters were out by the third quarter. It was 28-0 or before Tennessee Martin scored.
Yes.
So the defense did a job, 3 and out the first 2 possessions. Mm-hmm. Heck, in college football anymore, anybody can move the ball, anybody can score.
Yeah.
And Tennessee Martin also had an offense somewhat similar to Missouri in that a lot of quick release stuff, You can avoid sacks that way as well. Not a lot of drop back stuff. So you mentioned Wyoming. Wyoming's already 1-1. They've played 2 games, beat New Mexico State in the opener last week, and got blown out by Washington State today. So I don't know what to make of it. New Mexico State lost another game. So I think this might be, again, it's almost like a gradual increase in schedule strength for Mizzou. Mm-hmm. You get one AA team this week, FCS. You get Wyoming, which a non-power 5, FBS, and then at Purdue. I think it's a good way for Missouri to ease into the season.
Yeah, even you're talking about the 2 plays that Tennessee Martin scored on. I mean, honestly, credit to the quarterback. I mean, that was a 4th down scramble he had. Found the guy right in front of the end zone and set them up for 1st and goal. I mean, Missouri put pressure on him, and they had guys coming at him. He just made a really, 1 in a million throw to kind of show.
It was a great throw.
Yeah.
No doubt. And you said, the other touchdown was a busted coverage. Total busted coverage play.
Yeah, and even with Wyoming, I think Greg Bowles is a very underrated coach nationally. I'm a big fan of him. I'm curious to see how he prepares for Missouri. But, yeah, I do. I like how you put it with the gradual increase, because I think they have to win Saturday, because Purdue was kind of like their real, Kilgara said that they're treating every week like it's a Super Bowl. Well, I think in the eyes of fans, it was pretty empty today, but it was hot as hell and a blowout opponent.
Yeah.
I think the Purdue game is the real measuring stick for this team, because if they go into Purdue 2-0 and they win, I think this place will be sold out for Georgia, and maybe they can pull it off.
When you think about Missouri in the preseason going into the year, and you're trying to kind of seed the East, Georgia naturally is your favorite.
Absolutely.
I mean, they should. There's no unquestionably the favorite.
National runner-up.
Right.
Gave Alabama a really good game.
A lot of young guys back, a lot of starters back. Absolutely, Georgia should be where it's considered. However, Drew Lock is a game changer for me. He is the best. I think he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I think he has a chance to be the first quarterback taken in the NFL. He didn't put up gaudy numbers today, but I think, again, that
he didn't have to.
It spoke to what Missouri was doing today. He had to throw for 500 yards and 7 touchdowns last year against Missouri State. 4 touchdowns and 289 yards. Yes. I think is what he finished with. Not even close to getting sacked. I mean, he had all day to stand back there.
No real bad throws either. He overthrew it. Nothing concerning.
Right. So my point is, with him, you're right. If they beat Wyoming, get into Purdue and steal one there, they get Georgia here, and they've got the quarterback advantage. You got the quarterback advantage. They're going to have the quarterback advantage every game they play this year. And Georgia's got good quarterbacks, but I think Missouri,
2 good quarterbacks.
Yes, but I think Missouri's got the advantage. I'm gonna be really interested in that game.
We got to see some of the backup quarterbacks today too, which has been a real. This is going to be the first time in a long time that Missouri hasn't had an air in waiting. I mean, Brad Smith had Chase Daniel. Chase had Blaine Gabbert, James Franklin, Matty Mock to Drew.
Yeah.
There's no real heir apparent. I mean, Taylor Powell had a really nice throw to Emmanuel Hall. And, again, it's Tennessee Martin's the first game of the year. But I'm really curious to see how they kind of keep this situation going, because it's not practical. Both Michael Wilson and Taylor Powell both roughly got about a quarter of playing time. That's not practical to sustain throughout the rest of the year. And I think if Barry Odom does think that this roster has someone that could be the potential starter next year, they're going to have to figure out a way. Gary Pinkel gave every quarterback in waiting a series or 2.
He sure did.
I'm really curious to see how that situation unfolds, because if you don't have – you got to see what you have on the roster now before you go explore the grad transfer, the junior college market, or they have a current commit, Connor Bazelak, that I don't know if he'll be ready to play as a true freshman. So I'm – again, both looked – whatever today. I thought Powell's arm impressed me, given that he was, and I was surprised he was the first one in, given that Wilson played in garbage time last year. But I'm really curious to see, all right, if they do get comfortable against Wyoming, is it both Powell and Wilson again? Is it just Powell? Is it just Wilson?
And next week may be the last opportunity to get a little garbage time, at least with Purdue, Georgia coming up. So we'll see. But let me just say, I'm very impressed with your knowledge of Missouri history to roll off the backup quarterbacks in the Gary Pinkel era. That is really impressive. You know your stuff.
I try. I'm trying to think of anything. Again, blowout win. We don't have to spend a ton of time. If anyone's got questions,
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, RB depth is nice to see. First game with Demaria Crockett and Larry Roundtree. They combined for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
What did you think of the running game? I was looking for a little bit more than like whatever they averaged, 4.5 or something per carry. I wanted a little bit more. But one thing I did notice, I think they had a hard time keeping their feet in the first half when it looked like they might break something. Mm-hmm. They kind of tackled themselves a couple of times. And I don't think it was the slipperiness of the field. I think it was just a balance issue or something. But I thought there were a couple of occasions where they could have broken longer runs, both of them, and ended up going down after 8 or 9 yards.
It's funny you say that because you were saying how, to get nitpicky about like the 2 plays the defense allowed up for touchdowns. I was going to say to get nitpicky, I kind of thought for the run game being as highly touted as it was and having both these guys back. And again, Crockett hadn't played in the game in roughly since last October because he got hurt against Georgia. So I figured he'd have some rust. But, yeah, they only combined for 100 yards. Roundtree had 2 more carries than Crockett. And I was kind of surprised at just how, as you said, there was no real impressive run. I mean, even Roundtree had the nice spin move, but he kind of fell on his feet afterwards. There was no real eye-opening play from either one of them. They just kind of were solid. They weren't amazing given the competition.
So I asked Barry Odom after the game, will he sleep better tonight than he did a year ago on this night after they played Missouri State? And he gave coach speak, there's little things we got to clean up and everything. I actually do think this is one of the things they probably would want to clean up. And it's funny because the offensive line and pass protection was fantastic today. Yes. Absolutely fantastic. But for Missouri to rush for 164 yards, 3.7 yard average, I think that's the numbers that they want to improve on.
Yeah, the pass protection, Emmanuel Holt said how his first touchdown when he was wide open around the 2 Z's of the end zone was an accident because Locke told me they were supposed to have him get kind of like a quick pass and then go, and they didn't like the safety coverage. And he pretty much just walked around until he was open.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that, he extended the route because there was time to extend the route on both of his touchdowns.
Yeah, so the offensive line giving him as much time as they did. They had a guy in Sam Bailey who played a lot early in his career and kind of got replaced by more Barry Odom recruits. He filled in for Kevin Pendleton. With the way that they were given him pass protection, it's interesting that they didn't open up the holes that they did for the running backs. And then Tyler Beatty I thought was decent. He's been a guy they've been talking about all throughout camp. Demaria Crockett compared him to DeAnthony Thomas just in terms of speed, which that's a
compliment.
It's pretty elite company.
Yeah.
But again, he did some stuff, but there was no eye-popping moment for the run game, which was, like the freshman receivers, Cam Scott and Jalen Knox, 2 of the nicest catches on the day.
Oh, my God. And Cam's was really impressive.
Yes.
Really impressive.
It's kind of tough to say what was more. I mean, he had the tough catch with a guy on him.
Yes.
Then he shook 2-3 tackles to get into the end zone.
Yeah, that was impressive. Really, I was impressed with that kid. I didn't know much about him.
Yeah, so, and then the tight ends kind of really, they did some good block stuff. I mean, there wasn't really a need for them per se. And, everyone said, well, why didn't Barry Odom call the play action play that is money for Alberto every time in the red zone? Well, I don't think that they needed to. And again, the guy said they tried to keep the playbook tight. If I'm Derek Dooley, I don't want a team to know I took that from Josh Heupel.
Right, that's right. Impressive overall, though. I think bottom line today is they did exactly what they had to do, and not every team that plays an opponent that you think you're going to be overwhelm them. That happens. Just look at what's going on at Kansas State tonight and Penn State, Appalachian State. You just want to get through this first week if you're a favorite and hope it's a clean game as much as it can be. And it's you play. There's going to be some nerves because it's an opening game. You just want to get out of there. And I think Missouri got out of here feeling pretty good about itself.
Yeah, I agree completely. We got a couple questions. A lot of flash from the freshman receivers. Nate Brown's snap's going to be steadily reduced. With receiver, they bring in so many bodies. I think it's kind of too early to tell. I mean, Nate Brown caught everything really thrown to him today, but he didn't really do much after the catch. And again, the freshman looked good, but Alex Ofale, I covered him when he was in high school down the road at Rockbridge. I thought he was a phenomenal high school player. I was stunned he didn't really get in until garbage time, and I think he's someone that they'd like to try to ease into maybe pushing for a starting job. Rashad Floyd is out with a foot injury. He'll be back for Purdue probably. he's another one that kind of has to be factored in. So I think that if you're a returning receiver like a Nate Brown or a veteran like a Jonathan Johnson, you kind of look at the freshman today and say, okay, well, I got to bring it in practice now.
But you feel better about the position group because of these freshmen. So who leads this team in receptions this year?
After today, I feel like I think, Emmanuel Hall had 5 or 6 drops last season where because that they were he was the go route guy with the 50-yard pass. Yeah. I think if he gets all 5 or 6 of those, I don't know if he's gone to the NFL, but he definitely is an 1,000-yard receiver. Probably preseason All SEC, everything. Doesn't have that, and I think he knows it too. So I think he'll be their leading receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 1,000. After that, I think Nate Brown could lead them in catches, but he doesn't get a lot of yards after the catch right now. So that's kind of you lead him in catches, but what'd you do after it?
Right.
So
I didn't see many drops today. Were there?
Hall and I said how he had him last season. There was a couple that were slightly overthrown.
Yeah,
when you got on the play, it's kind of tough to get, especially because we were in the further press box. How close was it? But maybe 1 or 2 if that. So most of Locke's incompletions, and then he was 19 for 25.
Because he didn't have many.
Yeah, he's talked so much about completion percentage being important to him as he goes to the NFL. I think he hasn't cracked 60 yet. If 75 is not practical every night, but if he could really get around 65, that could do a lot for his draft stock.
Absolutely. What else you got?
Let's see. Pick the results for the 5 most critical games of the year: Purdue, Georgia, Bama, SC, Florida. You want to start with Bama because I feel like that.
Yeah, well, that to me is the easiest game to project, right? I mean,
if they win, to me, it's the biggest regular season win in program history.
Well, you'd have to go back. Missouri fans from the 70s will tell us the times they beat Notre Dame, Ohio State, etc.
Yeah. But in a dynasty like this,
no, that would be phenomenal.
It'd be the conversation instantly.
It would be phenomenal, but it's the lowest percentage chance of
victory. Agree.
So that's an L. I think the next lowest percentage chance of victory would be Georgia. Would it be? I think that's the next best opponent.
Yes.
But they got him here. They have him here, and the conditions might be right for they're not going to be favored.
They're not going to be favored. The thing that makes me wonder about the Georgia game and why I feel comfortable picking them to win almost because the last time Georgia was here in Barry Odom's first year, they had to lead the whole game, and then there was that blown 4th down coverage.
Yep.
I think that was Fromm that was quarterback for Georgia back then before he went to Washington. If you're the Mizzou seniors, I feel like you have to have a sour taste. I think if they won that game, they would have been in a bowl game that year. Found a way to make it work. And I just feel like with the next time they're coming to town and everything now, that'll be fresh in their minds. And if they win at Purdue, they come into that game with a lot of momentum and energy. And I guess we can transition to the Purdue game. I've never heard, again, you've been covering this long with me, I've never heard of someone say, man, West Lafayette's a tough place to go win.
It's not, although they had a nice season a year ago.
Yes,
and
I like Jeff Brom as a coach.
We all do.
Yes.
I mean, the guy's seems to be a good coach. They lost their opener the other day to Northwestern. But I think Northwestern's a good program this year. Mm-hmm. They were certainly – Northwestern was good last year. But I think Missouri now becomes the favorite in that game. I looked at it as a toss-up game going into the season. I think Missouri is now a favorite in that game.
Yeah, I think that Barry Odom knows how important of a game that is for his team. If they don't win at Purdue, there's going to be some empty seats in here for Georgia. And I think fan interest might be based off that game because the first 2 games are such low-level opponents.
Yeah.
To where, again, this is a fan base where when they're winning, the place is sold out. When they're on the fence, they don't get the benefit of the doubt all the time. So, and the 35-3 embarrassment last year, again, I think there is some sour taste with these teams. So I would project that as a win. South Carolina and Florida, I've really struggled with. I'm a huge Jake Bentley fan. I think, you said how Locke's the best quarterback in the conference. I agree with that. There's been talk of Tua, Jalen Hurts, Nick Fitzpatrick, Jarrett Stidham.
It's a good year. Good year for quarterbacks.
Yes, I think on a good day, Bentley can hang with a lot of those guys, and he kind of gets overshadowed by the quantity of good quarterbacks in the league.
Where are those games? South Carolina and Florida.
Yes.
On the road?
They're on the road.
On the road?
Both of them.
All right. Well,
Missouri's won in South Carolina before, too.
They have. They won at Georgia. So, all right, look, you give me those 5 games. In terms of who's going to be favored, Missouri's 1-4 in those 5 games, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, it depends on how the season unfolds. With South Carolina, obviously looked impressive, beating Coastal Carolina by a ton today. I don't know what Florida has done, but look, 1-4 based on the odds. I want to see Missouri next week before I just want to see. I want to see Missouri against an FBS opponent.
You know, what's funny is you plead in the fifth on this one. Soren Petro had me on to pick those two games. I said, I don't disagree with the notion that Florida's going to be better under Dan Mullen. But
I think eventually they will be.
Yes,
I do.
Yes, better overall at the end of the season. But where are they when Mizzou comes there? And the other thing is because a lot of these big games in the East happen so early with South Carolina against Missouri and Florida and Georgia. Same thing with Missouri. Those teams, we're going to go into the middle of October having a pretty good idea of who's in contention to win and not win the SEC East.
Right.
Missouri could come into both those games having a real shot at it, and especially if they come off if they beat Georgia, and some of those teams could be checked out at that point, knowing where their fate is. So
that's right.
It's
happened before.
Yeah, it's too early to call. I think on both those. Florida's the team. I agree that South Carolina looked good. I watched a bit of them today. Florida, I really have to see before I feel comfortable picking them. I think Missouri can hang more at South Carolina though than they can at Florida. If that
All right.
makes sense.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them a split in the Florida South Carolina games, make them 2-3 in those 5. I've got them 9-3 on the season. I'm a little more bullish on Missouri than most people that I see have them 7-5, maybe 8-4. I think they're going to win all their non-conference games now, and 9-3. So lose to Alabama, Georgia, and then either between South Carolina and Florida.
I've been around that same mark. Now let me ask you this: if they're 9-3, do you think Drew Lock is in the Heisman conversation with a record like? Because usually you need at least 9 is like the cutoff.
It is. Tim Tebow won it with the 9-3
with 9.
record.
Yeah, exactly. And does the 9-3 record, given that they do have a tougher non-conference than most schools that play 4 cupcakes? Memphis is a good team.
It is.
Wyoming is better than what most teams would schedule. Again, Tennessee Martin's really their own, and then Purdue is another Power 5 team. I'm of the belief, and this is where I think it's so tough for Drew in the Heisman race. I think his best chance to enter the Heisman race is they beat Georgia and they go 9-3.
No
I
doubt.
think that's the resume that
doubt.
gets him to New York.
No doubt. Will Greer apparently had a big game today for West Virginia.
Yes, I saw the box score. I didn't see a ton of that.
So he was, I actually picked him to win the Heisman in the preseason. I just think there's going to be opportunities in the Big 12.
Yes,
they were obviously a passing, pass happy league.
That offense, he'll get the numbers he needs.
He will. He's got an offensive minded coach in Dana Holgorsen. So I do have Greer winning the Heisman, but I think Locke has a chance of being the top quarterback drafted in next April. So more important. Did I mention this to you that I talked to Chase Daniel last week about Drew Lock? I was with the Chiefs up in Chicago, and apparently Chase and Drew have exchanged texts, and Chase is one of Drew's biggest fans. He just is really stoked about his season. And Chase came, not that Chase was going to leave after his junior year, but he played as a senior here, and now Drew's back as a senior, and Chase's advice was absolutely enjoy every moment of this. It's it's your last year of college, so take advantage of every moment, enjoy every game, every practice, every moment when you're with your teams. And every time I talk to Drew, I get a sense that he's doing that. He just seems so upbeat and happy, and the way he was talking about the offense tonight, he just seems to be in a good place.
He's really out of his shell with us. He's cracking jokes. He's a lot looser. I think that's the veteran coming out of him. I know these guys. I know what their deal is. I got nothing to lose anymore. Let's just go be myself.
And if you haven't read it, read Alex's story about Drew and his 6th grade team. I guess it was first organized football.
First time he played quarterback
organized.
Yes.
Yeah.
The highlights are crazy.
It was a neat story. If you go to kansascity.com and read that.
Awesome. Anything else from you guys? I got Cliff bothering me to finish my story now. So 25 minutes, that was a good run. So yeah, this is Blair Kerkhoff, this is Alex Schiffer, and don't know if I'll have company next week with the Chiefs going to LA, but
I think more often than not.
Yes. So we'll be making these a regular habit this season.
I like the pink shirt.
It's the only time I'm going to get to wear summer color, really. That's why I want the new tie too. So
very nice.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Good night.